things, but what was, and he played a lot last year, so he's an inside player that didn't go. Um, you got Matt Jones has played very well for us down the stretch last year. Harry played a lot in there, and then you've got the young guy Luke Whippler coming on. So there's some competition and depth um, at the center position. In the offensive guard world, you got Paris Johnson's playing guard, but could easily be a tackle for us as well. Trying to get him to potentially be one of the best 5 players. Harry and Matt both played guard, so you could be the second center, but you could be the starting guard. So there's a little bit of those inside guys. The center and guard's about the same for the most part. The center's got to handle the ball, a little bit more stress there. Josh Fryer, a young player, did very, very well for us at guard in the spring. So there's going to be, we lose Wyatt, we lose Josh, 2 quality players, but we got some talented young guys. So the bulk of the spring was a combination of Matt Jones and Luke at center. And it was Josh Fryer and Enoch playing some guard, Josh Fryer, Ryan Jacoby playing some guard with Paris. And then at the tackle spots, you got Thayer, you got Nick, you got DeJuan Jones doing well. You got the young players in Zen, Ben Chrisman, Grant Toutant. So there's a lot of competition. And bottom line, you're going to need about 8 guys that you can win with. Again, like I think I said this earlier, but when we play in the national championship team, I think the guy that won the Remington Award wasn't playing, and the backup center had to play well enough for our opponent to win. And that's what we're going to need. We're going to need, more. We got some depth. More than anything, hopefully we have some great competition, great camaraderie. Thought Stud did a great job with those guys this spring. Thought they had an awesome spring. I think it's one of the better units of our football team.
Thank you, Coach.
All righty, well, let's go next to Tim May from Letterman Row.
Thank you very much, Mike. I was wondering, Kevin, as you watch Trevion Henderson, just specifically him, I know all those running backs are competing and stuff, but as you reviewed the tape of him through the spring, what just jumped out at you about him? And do you see him clearly playing a role this fall?
Yeah, again, I think if we go through a summer and he continues to develop and enhance and stay healthy, but continue to get stronger from a durability standpoint, we did a fair amount of contact. I thought Coach Day was very, very smart and in the back and forth of when it was tackle days and when it wasn't, how much was shoulder pad practice and how much was a lot of perimeter and passing and all that. So I think our team did a lot of contact, and it was a physical spring, but I thought Ryan did a great job of having the balance to keep the guys fresh. So now you got a young freshman, and these next we're getting ready to take about a 2-week break here. Guys get back here middle of May, and they'll get on a 6-week run with a Memorial and 4th of July break, and then a July run. And what you're trying to do there in that period, Tim, is not only get stronger, not only get faster, not only get in shape, but you're trying to get your body, you're trying to get your mind, and you're trying to get your soul hard enough to be a great practice player every Tuesday, Wednesday. And I think for a guy like Trevion as a young player, he's going to be talented enough to have a role. That role will be enhanced like all these players we're talking about with their durability and their dependability, and their body holds up. I thought Trevion was very good with the football, which most running backs are that are talented like him, but he really impressed me as a young player stepping up in pass pro, taking on some of our linebackers and the blitz pickup periods that we did. And he caught the ball, you saw in the spring game, very well out of the backfield. So for a young player that sometimes it takes a lot of time to get really good at pass protection, to get really good at route running, for a young player, he handled some of those things very well starting out. Not a lot on his plate yet, but he handled it well, and he's a talented player, and he should have a positive role. And as always, we're talking about the line, you're going to need really about 3 backs that can play championship football for us. So we're going to need, a combination of him and Master and Mayan and Marcus Crowley, Steel Chambers, Evan Pryor. We're going to need 3 or 4 of those cats to play high end for us this year.
Your soul, huh? That's interesting.
You gotta get your soul right, man, to come up every day with the right kind of spirit to practice now. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You always have a good soul, Tim. Now, all great players have, and it's not the soul of their feet. They have a great soul internally to get your mind and body hard to play championship football. Great players, great teams, great players, are great practice teams, and they do it on Tuesdays and Wednesdays. And what we're getting ready to go through right now is to get ourselves ready to be a great Tuesday, Wednesday team. So on Saturdays, we can play the way our fans and the way we expect to play.
Thanks, man.
Thank you.
All righty, next up, Austin Ward, Letterman Row. Kevin, what made G. Scott a candidate for you at tight end?
Well, it came from he. I think he and his dad had thought about it, and with his size, I would kind of joke around a year ago when he showed up, like, hey, you keep, put an extra patty on that cheeseburger there and make it a double, and we can make you a tight end real quick here. He's going to run routes well. He was limited with the hamstring injury. It wasn't major, but did limit some practice. I'd love to have had him on the field a little bit more. So he's going to need a great summer, but his skill set in the passing game will be well, and it's our ability to help him understand and physically gain some weight and strength. It's going to be a developmental process. He'll be at some point as we start August, and we'll see how we can enhance and use his skill to complement the position and complement the offense. And then it'll evolve through the fall, next off season, and next year. That because again, we're basically asking these guys to play a little bit of left tackle and a little bit of wide receiver. He will be very comfortable in the receiving game and the matchups there, but we don't want him to go on the field and always be a guy that now we're throwing the ball because he's in the game. He needs to be very competent in the blocking game, and we'll be very smart in trying to develop him, but also put him in matchups where he can gain confidence in the schemes and the plays that are called and the formations that he's in, play to his strengths. But over time, hopefully he'll get strong enough and big enough to, right now he's in the low 220s. So we'll need to get him hopefully by 230, 30-ish, 32, 35 by the fall. And maybe a year from now, 40 couple, where he's a 240, 45 pound guy and be a much more complete player. Excited to have him though.
Okay, we'll go next to Bill Rabinowitz, Columbus Dispatch.
Hi, Kevin. What did you see out of the quarterbacks this spring that was encouraging, and what did you see that needs to improve before any of them are ready for the fall?
Encouraging in that I think they all have the arm strength and the arm talent to make a lot of throws that we like and need to make. I think the offensive line, I think the tight end group will complement the line. I think the running back position will be good enough to hopefully we can be a solid running team. We've been a pretty good running team. We've been one of the stronger run teams in the conference and in the country. And if you can run the ball well, then you force the defense maybe to load up a little bit more, and then you get those one-on-one plays. And when you got the receivers that we have, the ability of the quarterback to get the ball and target those guys. So I think their ability to throw the football is very nice. I think they all actually move better than most people think. They're not pure drop back guys. They can extend plays. They can scramble around and make a little chicken salad when the chicken's not there all the time. They can run a little bit of zone read, quarterback run game when you need them to run the ball. Even though they're not elite runners, they're athletic enough. So I was impressed with their skill set of throwing, their ability to move, but they all need to play where they can recognize coverage and distribute the ball. So the shortcomings is that they're young. They just, sometimes you got to flop around. Sometimes, what you're seeing on the videotape is different than what you see on the field because now you're at ground level and the people coming at you, and how do you see and how do you process? So they need to play. And I think you guys know this. It's hard when you have three really good players to get three guys the reps you need. So we got to be very creative in how to do that. You want to be very fair and give them all a chance to develop, give them all a chance to be potentially the starter. But again, like I've said, it's several positions. You're going to need more than one. They just need to play. And I know Coach Day and Coach Dennis will do a great job with them.
All right, we'll go next to Jared Smalley, WCMH.
Hi, Kevin. I'm sure you probably are aware of this. There were some proposals thrown out this week that we learned about from the Rules Committee about potential changes to practice structure for next year, including a reduction in contact practices. I think the old number was 21, and they're looking at 8. How does that affect a preseason practice? The way that you want to play in the first game, how would, if that rule does in fact pass, how would it affect the preparation?
Well, I think over time, in the last 5, 8, 10 years in general, I think the majority of programs, coaches, position coaches, coordinators, head coaches have changed the way practices in preseason have been done, because the ability for the body to be durable and to come back the next day in practice and the next day in practice. So I think we've all gotten pretty creative. I do think because we are playing a contact sport, there's got to be enough contact that, a player learns how to hit, learns how to safely hit, but learns how to take a hit, how to protect himself, how to run with a football and minimize risk, how to make a tackle. So there's going to be some give and take. And if there's reduction in the amount of contact, it's going to force coaches, I think, to be very, very creative in non-contact days to still teach guys how to block and tackle. And, our players would tell you that sometimes when we are practicing and we don't have our pads on, it's sometimes maybe more physical and dangerous than when we have pads on, because you're kind of going full go, not taking guys to the ground, but those linemen are up there and, helmets hitting you in a collarbone, and it kind of stings, it kind of bruises a little bit. So, we just got to be smart in how we protect guys, because at the end of the day at Ohio State, we're very fortunate. A lot of you guys cover us from recruiting. We recruit a lot of talented players, but this sport is a developmental sport, and you have to develop. And it's not just weight room develop. It's development of the skill set. It's development of the discipline to be a great player. And whatever those rules are, we're going to have to follow those, but we're going to have to be very, very crafty in how to continue to enhance and develop these players because at the end of the day, it's window dress, but it's still blocking and tackling. And the really, really good teams block and tackle. And in the championship game last year, we didn't block and tackle as well as our opponents. So the ability to teach and enhance that's the key to being a great team. And we'll follow those rules, but we got to become really good playing the game with the proper pad level. So it'll be interesting to see how that moves as we go forward.
All righty, we'll go next to Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Hey, Kevin, it's come out that Justin Fields is managing epilepsy. You talked about soul. How impressed have you been with the way he managed that and kept things going?
Yeah, I personally didn't really cross that or was a part of that. Was aware. Again, I've just been impressed with him since he's been here from the first day. The way he came in and tried to just earn the job with no expectations. Didn't try to come in and be the team leader day one. Tried to just be the quarterback. Over time, became a great team leader. Over time, was awesome in the weight room, very consistent. Coach Mick would tell you, for a quarterback, one of the best weight room workout guys he's ever had. He's been great for us on the practice field. You guys saw the clip against Michigan State where he takes off and he bursts downfield for 40 or 50 yards to make a block there when Trey Sermon is scoring a touchdown. We could pull out clips in practice where that was daily in the way he practiced. So I've just got he's an unbelievably talented player, but I think he's an unbelievably gifted young man. And the way he managed that is, I think, the way he's managed a lot of things in his life. And he's going to have a phenomenal opportunity to be a great pro player. He's been an awesome Buckeye. I love him to death and I wish him nothing but the best. And I just got a lot of respect for not only the way he managed your question there with epilepsy, but just the way he came in, has managed everything since he's been here. He's been a great teammate, been a great team leader. He's a tremendous player. He's a man I have a lot of respect for.
Okay, next up, we'll go to Bill Landis with the Athletic.
Hey, Kevin, you guys showed a fair amount of the counterplay in the spring game, and I don't know if that's just a spring game thing, trying to keep it basic, or is that something that you're looking to maybe expand in the offense, and what do you like about that as a complement to the stretch play?
Well, I know the one site draws up our plays a lot, and I just felt in looking at it, they hadn't done the counter in a while, so I thought this summer would be a great project so they could tweak their physios and their deals, and just really thought it would be a phenomenal deal for the summer guys, because they couldn't copy and paste, Bill, just the previous stuff. They actually had to draw some new things, had to really do a little bit more research. And as the weather breaks and golf season approaches and the pool time and the lake and the fishing time comes, I figured those guys need a little bit of work. So we thought it was a great opportunity to do that. So I don't know, we've always ran the counter, Bill. The problem is, how many plays can you emphasize? And in the run game, it's hard to get really good with all the formation variations. It's hard to get good at more than about 3 or 4. And sometimes that play's always been like play number 4 or 5 or 6 on the menu when it came to practice. So we just, in spring thought we'd just try to practice a little bit more. Thought with, Mitch Rossi as a hybrid fullback and Cade Stover, because sometimes we're doing the counter play, not with just the guard and tackle, but with the guard and the second puller is like the tight end. I thought it fit those two guys a little bit. And so we didn't do it a lot. We did it the last couple of weeks. And because we did it at the end, we ran the spring game a couple of times.
All righty, we'll go next to Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Kevin, this quarterback competition, I guess, like a couple of years ago and in the past, we'll go into summer and camp and all. What's the value? What do you guys is the biggest value from watching guys from spring to summer to fall and kind of making that decision much later?
One, their performance, and 2, I think their not only how they perform, but do the guys around them rally and perform, and they make the players around them better. They're able to distribute to the ball, to the playmakers we got. So, I think, again, in spring, I think you saw they all did well. You guys saw some of the practice, saw some of the spring games. We mixed it around pretty evenly. Um, I think we can look at the statistical numbers from the spring game if you just want to look at numbers. And I guess Jack didn't maybe have statistically as good a day as the other, but still had more passes. So we tried to, didn't change we play a little bit to their strengths, but they're all about the same. So it's not like, hey, call this play because CJ's in, call this play for Kyle. We just kind of call the plays. So maybe that hurts those guys, but we didn't really get into specific, emphasize certain things for certain guys. Let's just run the offense that's in for now and see how they can manage it. So I think you go through summer and see how that enhances. We get limited in summer with being on the field with them when they're throwing the football. We don't do a lot of throwing because we like to do a lot of development of Coach Mick. And if they're doing a lot of lifting and running for Coach Mick, and then we're doing a lot of running when they're doing 7-on-7 on their own and they're at risk for injuries. So yeah, we got to be smart. So they need time, they need practice. I guess we'll just see how the summer evolves. And does anyone really take off in summer? We'll be limited with what we see in summer. So I guess you don't know the preseason. Typically that gets a couple weeks of preseason before it settles out. So, we'll see. They're all in the mix and they're all going well, and they all got a lot of work to do. And it's obvious that they're talented, but they need to work, they need to play, and we just got to keep battling through that.
All righty, Coach Wilson, thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it today.
Hey guys, have a great summer. Appreciate y'all. See ya. Go Bucks.
We'll bring Coach Day in for you just momentarily.
That'll be May 17th that happens.
All righty, Coach Day, thank you very much for spending a little time with us today. Let's start it out with Nathan Barrett from Cleveland.com. Nathan, go ahead.
Ryan, I guess where would you assess the fluency in the offense for all three of these quarterbacks, and what happens between now and the, I guess, late summer when you get to sort of reinstate more formal practices again? What are they tasked with doing between now and then?
Yeah, they're tasked with being obsessed with learning the offense, and a lot goes with that. They got to get in the weight room with Mick. They got to get stronger. They got to get faster. They got to get quicker. We grade our guys in there, and we have a champions meeting right before the beginning of preseason camp. And if you're a gold, then that means that you're one of the top performers in the weight room. That's the first thing they got to do. But then it's off the field is studying film, watching film, spending time in the Woody, and just wearing out the XO system. And that's what they got to do. The fluency of the offense, I mean, they're getting there, but they got a long way to go. It was very, very basic. We worked on fundamentals and techniques, and so we, like I said, we're playing catch up here. We obviously would love to have somebody that's in year 2 or 3 here. We don't have that luxury, so we got some young guys, and they got work to do. And so it's a race, like I said the other day, to make up for time that we don't have. That's just the truth of it. And we'd love to be practicing all summer. We'd love to be practicing right now. We can't do that. So the only way to do that is to watch film and have these guys do work on their own, and try to maybe give them some worksheets and different things to let them work on their own and help them guide them a little bit. But at the end of the day, they have to be self-motivated.
Okay, we'll go next to Dan Hope from 11 Warriors.
Hey, Ryan, do you feel like there's a timeline going into August where you feel like maybe I need to narrow the competition down to 2 quarterbacks, or maybe I need to make the decision on who our starter is going to be so that that guy can get enough reps before that season opener?
I think the idea is to get the guys ready. I think one of the things just across the board, the focus is who's the starter. Okay, well, you can be the starter, but if you're not ready to go, that's not going to last very long. So the race is to get ready to play. So if we feel like someone's taken that much of a step ahead and they're ready to play against Minnesota in that first week, then we'll name the starter at that point. If it's not until the week before, it's not going to be until the week before. It would be ideal to be able to name somebody a little bit sooner than that. So like you said, they can get the majority of the reps. But until someone really puts themselves out in front of the other two, we'll just keep going. And it's a long year. It's a long process. And the focus for these guys, again, just has to be, how do I get developed faster? How do I get the most ready to play in this season faster? Not trying to win the job, because I think maybe sometimes it's like, that's, how do I compare myself to the guy next to me? It's not about that. It's how do I get myself ready? Because we have to go win some really hard games this season.
Next up, Patrick Murphy, 247.
Ryan, I have a kind of off the wall question. We've heard for several years now about players and athletes using social media as it's gotten bigger to kind of speak their minds and maybe create their own narrative. Recently, and by that I mean within like the last year, you've seemed to use that on your own, whether it was talking about wearing masks and being safe, supporting the team in their fight to play, coming out the other day and talking about Justin's health. I'm just curious at what point you realize social media could be a tool for you and how you decide when you want to use that. Because I know it's not, all the time that you put messages like that out.
No, I think it's a really good question. And I think it's something that, I have to continually do a better job of, and we do, talking to our players about the benefits and the risks surrounding social media. And certainly when something doesn't go well, social media can be toxic, and it can really get to these guys. And it has gotten to a lot of our players. And you feel like the world's caving in. The truth is, if there's 50 people saying crazy things about you on the internet, if you look at 50 people in the horseshoe, it's like this little small section up in the left-hand corner over there. It's not as many as you think, but you have to have some perspective there. The minute you go onto social media, you're at risk. You're at risk to all the people who make comments and do different things. And so understanding that before you step into that world is important. I think it is very powerful to make or to use social media to communicate, to make statements, to help support our players. And so I'll use it in those situations. I try not to overdo it though. But I know it does have power, and it certainly has, its place.
All righty, we'll go next to Tony Gerdeman, Buckeye Scoop.
Ryan, Ohio State has generally had the best offense in the Big Ten over the last decade, certainly since you've been there. How confident are you that that will continue in 2021?
We don't have a choice. I tell the guys all the time, like, we have to. So, whatever that means. And that's the desperation that we have to wake up with every day as coaching staff, as players. I tell the guys all the time, I wake up scared every day, that people want what we have. And so the expectation's been set. We know that. It was the same expectation when I was fortunate enough to be the head coach a couple of years ago, and the expectation hasn't changed, and it won't in 20 years here at Ohio State. So we're expected to be the best, and with that comes great responsibility. And so we'll just wake up every day and just grind. And again, I keep using the word obsessed. I mean, our players have to become obsessed with maximizing themselves in the weight room, watching film, and getting themselves prepared to play against Minnesota.
Hey, next up, Jeremy Birmingham, Leonard Monroe.
Hey, Ryan, I know that obviously the 180-mile radius around Columbus is always the most important focus on the recruiting trail. But when you guys look ahead and see one area or one region of the country that has like a really centralized group of talent in a class that's down the road, how does that change how you approach the entire class? Or do you guys reallocate resources or change things up at all when you see like Florida having a huge year down the road? And how does that change things for you?
I don't know if it changes things other than, like you said, we try to recruit as many guys as we can in our footprint here, the Midwest, certainly the state of Ohio. And then we go from there. We're fortunate enough to be able to recruit from coast to coast. And when you look at our roster, you see that. And we're looking for guys who have like-minded philosophies. They want to be great. They want to compete. They want to come in here and be part of a family, but also compete for a national championship. So we're looking for that right culture fit. But in terms of philosophically in recruiting, we're very much position specific. And because of the way things have been the last year and a half, it's been a lot more efficient for us to be position specific. When you're on the road traveling and you go down to see a defensive back in Florida, well, now you need to go recruit the area a little bit and see some of the coaches and kind of cultivate the area. When you're not traveling, it's a lot easier and more efficient to just do more position recruiting, because in the end, these players want to know who they're being coached by, and the position coach, the strength coach, and the head coach all have to be involved in that. And so that's kind of what we've been into. As we start to get back on the road recruiting, then we'll start to really focus in a little bit more on our recruiting areas to be more efficient with our time.
Let's go next to Bill Rabino. It's Columbus Dispatch.
All right. Other than quarterbacks, probably the biggest question your team is the back seven on defense. What do you see from your linebackers and DBs and what you see in the spring? How concerned are you about the injuries and the lack of how that will affect you going forward? And how comfortable are you going to be in the fall, you think, with the back seven?
I mean, I'm very encouraged with what we did this spring on defense in general. I think we have some really good young talent back there. And, the forecast is that we're going to get everybody back here. So we did have some surgeries, different things. And so that was frustrating that these guys weren't able to get as many reps in the spring as you would like. But the good news is the cavalry's coming on this thing, and we're going to have really great depth back there. When you look at our numbers and where we're projected to go into preseason camp, I'm fired up about that. But like you said, summer is going to be really, really important. Preseason is going to be really, really important. We do have some guys who have had some reps back there with Seven and Cam. Those guys have been in the program for a while. Marcus Williamson. But we also have some young guys, some freshmen that are coming in. But I was encouraged by what I saw back there. I thought that some of the young guys really stepped up, and they use these 15 practices to get better. So we're going to be much deeper in the secondary than we've been. We're also going to be younger. So there's a give and take there. But I think the future is very, very bright. And I'm really happy with where our recruiting is at and where our talent level is back there.
All right, we'll go next to Doug Lesmerises, Cleveland.com.
Hey, Ryan, there's some, these stats, but I saw the stats. Justin and his time at Ohio State seemed to, you used him to throw down the field a lot. He threw maybe fewer screens or RPO, shorter stuff than some of the other top quarterbacks than Trevor Lawrence or Mac Jones. We know when you got here, a lot of mesh routes with JT. Dwayne got the ball out of his hands quickly. With where your quarterbacks are now, would you imagine in this season you'll emphasize the short passing game a little bit more, get it out of their hands with the young quarterback? Or do you want to be an offense that throws the ball down the field a lot, and that what we saw with Justin is more indicative of where this offense is now?
Again, another great question. I think we're still not there yet with these guys, figuring out where we want to spend our time in terms of emphasizing. Our offense is our offense. It hasn't changed, when JT was the quarterback, when Dwayne was the quarterback, when Justin was the quarterback. But to your point, what do we want to emphasize? The plays really haven't changed. But if you have 100 plays in a game or 80 plays in a game, when do you want to, emphasize based on their strengths? Three different quarterbacks, very similar, but I think all three have different strengths and weaknesses. And so as we go into a game, we're certainly going to do the things that they, do best. And I don't think I have the answer to that yet. I think some of them do get the ball out of their hand quickly, and that's good. I think they do have good accuracy underneath. But I also think that they do a decent job down the field as well. So in a perfect world, you'd like to do a little bit of both. And if that's what we do, that's what we do. But again, the strength of college football coaching is to find out what they do really, really well and emphasize that. We're still not there yet, though.
All righty, we'll go next to Whitney Harding. Whitney, go ahead.
Hey, Ryan, it feels like every offseason from college football, there's the question of, is overtime going to change? And it finally did. What do you think about the new overtime rules and the other rules that have been brought up as far as potential changes to offseason practice and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the overtime rule makes sense when you see some of these games. I know some of the crazy games have gone 6 and 7 overtimes, and that's not good for the players. So I get it. It's not ideal, but I think it makes sense for player safety. And yeah, the stuff that goes on in the summer, I just think we need to really talk that and think that through and make sure we're not rushing into a decision on that, because we've been doing things a certain way for a long time, and I don't think we want to change just to change. But certainly, I think it's worth a conversation.
Okay, let's go next to Austin Ward, Letterman Row.
Ryan, is there something that you didn't get accomplished in spring that you thought you would or you wanted to?
No, not really. I mean, I think that the fundamentals and techniques were just the huge emphasis point. There were still some guys who got injured, like I think Bill was talking about in the back end, that I wish those guys got more reps across the board. But, for the most part, we got what we wanted to accomplish in the spring. And I would say the most got done in that 9 to 13 practice right there when things got hard and some guys couldn't sustain. They struggled, and other guys did. They worked their way through practice, and that we found out a lot about the team, and that was really, really well done. So still got work to do, but overall I think everything we wanted to get done, we got done.
Thanks.
Let's go next to Jared Smalley, WCMH.
Ryan, you had, as mentioned a moment ago, you issued a social media statement about Justin a couple of days ago, and I wanted to follow up on that about working with him through that process, about managing his health over the past couple of years. Obviously, it wasn't public knowledge of what he was dealing with. How you all worked with him on that, what you encountered, maybe some challenges that you encountered, you had to work through in figuring out how to make sure he was healthy, let alone able to play football.
I mean, I think one of or a couple of the strengths of Justin, if you ask me, my favorite things about Justin, one, I would say is his work ethic, the way he comes and grinds every single day. And then two, the way he takes care of his body and his health. He went to a vegan diet. He takes all that stuff very, very seriously. And, we never had any issue with his health. I mean, he was reliable, never missed a game. The only snaps he missed was after taking a shot in his knee, and then the shot he took in the Clemson game. He was always a pro about his body and his health. So never really had to worry about that. Even, when he took those shots and had to come back from those games and then play the next week as well. So was a pro, was durable, was reliable, and never had to worry about any of that stuff with Justin.
All right, let's go next to Dennis Dodd, CBS Sports.
Hey, Ryan, kind of dovetailing off that, in a relatively short amount of time, you've been on both sides of the draft. You've had to evaluate players and then have them evaluated. Specifically, what, on the college side, what goes through your mind when you see these guys scrutinized like Justin? You know their character, you know how they can play, but it's almost they're built up to a point, to tear them down by all the pundits.
Yeah, I get frustrated. I feel like there's a lot of people in the draft, and some guys get a pass and some guys don't. And certainly people have taken shots at Justin. Though when I think about being the quarterback at Ohio State, when I talk to families and their recruits, we say it's like being the shortstop of the New York Yankees. With that comes great scrutiny. There's pluses and there's minuses to everything. And I think one thing too that Justin did an unbelievable job of is handle that when he was here. He kind of isolated himself. He didn't have a lot of people get to him. It was kind of him and his dog in his apartment a lot. And he did a great job of handling what comes with being the quarterback at Ohio State. And along the lines, you're going to get different scrutiny along the way. And that's part of, I guess, America, and they build you up and they try to rip you down. And there's vulnerability and there's exposure there. But the one thing about Justin, he never gets rattled at all. I mean, it just actually fuels his fire a little bit, which I think is a good thing. And now when you look at some of the more successful quarterbacks in the NFL, they've been through adversity. And this is just kind of one more level of adversity he's had to go through. It's just people taking shots at things that I think are his strengths. So it's been a unique. And yeah, to your point, I've been a little frustrated to hear some of the things that have been said, but he stays above the fray. And I know he's just fired up about getting back to football.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right, we'll do about two more for Coach Day. Let's go to Bill Landis from The Athletic. Bill.
Hey Ryan, when we come off a season in which you get the national championship and the game goes the way that yours did, I think a lot of folks might anticipate sort of macro level sort of sweeping changes to address that. But it seems like maybe your focus is more, micro, smaller than that. How did the way that game went, and maybe how you ultimately assess where you guys are relative to being able to win that game? Because I know that's the goal. How did that kind of inform the way you wanted to go about this winter and spring?
Well, I think first off, this year was a little bit of an anomaly. And I think when you look at what we went through with really no preseason in the month of September, we weren't having a season. So some guys were in California, some guys were in Florida, some guys weren't working out, some guys were. The season was over. And then we find out that there might be a season. We kind of get everybody back together, and then we get a few weeks to get ready for the season. That happened. Then during the season, well, we didn't have games. So we only had 6 games leading up to the Big Ten championship game. And then all that being said, coming back and having to play a really good Clemson team and to play the way we did was amazing. And I don't really know to this day how we got that done, because we weren't really prepared to play in the postseason the way that we would like to normally. And then coming off of that game, Justin's got that injury. We had one padded practice leading up to the game. Some days, leading up to that game, we weren't allowed to practice because we had to meet virtually because we had an outbreak of COVID on the team. Yet we still were going to play in the game against an opponent that really hadn't broke stride all year. Very, very difficult situation, and never made excuses. We were going to play in the game. I would love to have played the game under different circumstances in a different moment, but I chalked that up to COVID, and it's a learning experience. And so I'm very, very proud of what we accomplished this year. And to make changes because of that would be foolish, because the things that were accomplished this year were amazing. Some of the best coaching that I've seen and some of the best leadership that I've seen in my coaching career. So I look at the other way. I think guys need to be commended for what they did, because this was really, really hard. And unless you were really in it, you don't get it. And I'm not trying to be over dramatic, but it was real. And we'll be talking about this for 20 years down the road. So I'm proud of what we did. Certainly every year you want to make adjustments, and you got to get back to that game. We got to win that game. That's part of our job here at Ohio State. That's the expectation. We know that we're not going to run from it. So we're always going to make adjustments year in and year out. But I just think that things that were done this year were awesome, and we're going to keep building on as we move forward.
All righty, let's go next to Tim May, Letterman Road.
Thanks, Mike. Real quick, that was funny coming off of that speech there. But I did want to ask you about this, Ryan. Trevion Henderson, the last time you saw him run the ball, he was a junior in high school. And I'm just wondering specifically about him and the running backs, but specifically about him. What did you see that just stood out about him through the spring and through the spring game that tells you he can contribute?
Yeah, I mean, I hate to talk too much about the freshmen because there's a lot of sophomores and juniors and seniors that have made great strides. But I know that some of the new guys we like to find out about. And so, yeah, I mean, I think Trey, really did a good job out there not playing football for a long time. He's still learning and figuring it out. Similar to the way JK didn't really play his senior year.
Yeah.
He had to kind of come in and learn. So every time he got out there, he was kind of getting more and more strong and figuring things out. But I think he has the respect of his teammates because of his approach, the way he lives his life off the field, his seriousness about the game. So excited to see where this summer heads as we head into August.
Thanks, man.
Yep.
All righty, and last question for Coach. We'll go to Rob Aller, Columbus Dispatch.
Oh, Rob, you're on mute, I think, bud.
How's that?
Yep, got you now.
You and Justin are very close. Was there discussions about keeping his epilepsy private? And now that it's leaked, have you two been able to talk to maybe turn him into a spokesperson to kind of take a potential negative, turn it into a positive, or where does that stand in just your discussions and his situation?
Yeah, we didn't have a whole bunch of conversations about it. Justin's a private person, and that's his business. And we just talked about how he's going to handle it and the medication that he takes, and he always was a professional about that. And because of that, it was never really an issue, and it was never really much of a topic of conversation. again, I think one of the best things he does was take care of his body, and he did that there. So yeah, never really discussed it that way, but we'll kind of see as we move forward what he wants to do with it.
You're not surprised it got leaked, I'm guessing.
I don't know. I mean, Justin is a private guy, and I'm not sure that he wants the world to know some of his private things. But I guess when you're about to be one of the top quarterbacks taken in the draft, you're exposed to some different things, and I guess that's kind of the way it goes. But I'm sure it's not something he wanted to share with everybody.
All righty, Coach. Thank you very much for your time. Really appreciate it today.
All right, guys. Have a great weekend. Thanks. Good to go.
All righty, folks. We're going to have Coach Combs here to talk a little defense with you. Let's let Coach get settled there, and let's start it out with Stephen Meade from Cleveland.com. Stephen.
Hey, Gary.
Hi, Stephen. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Great. Thanks.
All right. Last year, it seemed like you guys, just based off because of what the year was and your time. I mean, you got here and then COVID and all that stuff. You guys had a lack of options based off just personnel of what you guys, who you could put out on the field, who you felt comfortable with. I know Steven and Cam didn't do a lot this spring, but just that also gave some opportunities to some of these young guys like Legend and Lathan and Cam Martinez to just get opportunities, and Ryan Watts to get out on the field. How much more comfortable are you, and how much more at ease are you heading into fall camp just about what your options are from a personnel standpoint of what you can put on the field?
We're much more comfortable. We have significantly more depth in the back end. It's a great experience for those kids this spring. A lot of young kids getting a lot of reps, and you don't want guys to be injured. And at the same time, it afforded the opportunity for us to really coach some depth in the back end. So it's so much different than where we were a year ago, just in numbers and in depth across the board in the back end.
All righty, let's go next to Spencer Holbrook, Letterman Row.
Kerry, it seems like at times it's kind of easy to get lost in the shuffle there in the secondary with as many bodies as you have there. But how much easier, I guess, is, for lack of a better term, has it been to evaluate some of these younger guys while the older veterans that you already kind of know what they can bring are not on the field all the time? How much easier does that make it to evaluate guys like Cam and then the freshmen?
Yeah, I think they got to play. We had I think 10 defensive backs that were over 450 reps in spring of team type reps, which is awesome. And so those guys had a great chance to play, coverage to play, in addition to all of the individual work, right? Those are team reps. That's not 7-on-7. That's not one-on-ones against the best wide receivers in the country. All of those things that you need to develop your skill set, they were able to get an awful lot of work.
All right, let's go next to Bill Landis from The Athletic.
Hey, Kerry, I know you had some guys out at the inside linebacker positions this spring, and your numbers maybe were a little lighter there. So was the idea of playing more of that hybrid guy in place of the Sam because of that, or is this the direction you'd like to see the defense go moving forward with kind of playing a safety linebacker hybrid more in that Sam spot than a traditional Sam linebacker?
No, it's a great question, Bill. I think that what we want to do is get our best 11 guys on the field. And I think that you have to evaluate who's healthy, who's able, and who's capable to play. And I think that what spring allowed us to do was to just continue to develop options along those lines. And it was unfortunate that we had some injuries at linebacker, but it gave us the opportunity to put some different kids in some different spots, which I think, again, lends itself to depth in the fall. And so not ideal all the time. Some guys playing in the box, that haven't played there before, but I think that doesn't do anything but serve us well going forward.
Hey, next up, we'll go to Dave Biddle, 24/7. Dave, go ahead.
Hi, Kerry.
Hi, Dave.
Ryan Watts is a very tall corner at 6'3". You've coached a lot of tall corner, guys like Eli Apple and many others, Jeff Okuda. I don't know if you've ever coached a corner this tall. Just what stands out about him other than his height, and what do you expect out of him this fall, Kerry?
Yeah, he had a great spring, over 500 reps. He is tall. He's the tallest corner that I've ever coached, but he's able to transition his body in short space quickness. He's got long speed. Because of that length, I think getting his hands on receivers at the line of scrimmage will be of paramount importance to him. And then his ability to have range in zone. Sometimes when you have that big wingspan, you can get your hands on balls. And so those taller guys can also do that in zone coverage. So I thought it was a very good and productive spring for Ryan. I'm excited for him in the fall.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Alrighty, next we'll go to Bill Rabinowitz from the Columbus Dispatch.
Hi, Kerry.
Hi, Bill.
You seem pretty confident with the DBs. I want to ask you about the linebackers. Obviously, Dallas wasn't there. Mitchell Milton got hurt. How comfortable do you feel with them, and specifically guys like Taraja and Kayvon and their development right now?
Yeah. I thought that what happened to those guys was they had the opportunity to have so many reps at really multiple spots because of the injury that their development was really significant. And so Tommy had a very good spring. Cody had a very good spring. And then the two kids you mentioned, Kayvon and Taraja, they played the best football that I've seen them play since they've been Buckeyes. So that core of four guys had the opportunity to get a lot of work. And so I'm excited for them. And then it also gave Reed Carrico the opportunity to be on the field, much more than you would have expected him to be. And so their opportunities were great. They handled them well, and I'm looking forward to watching them play in the fall.
Thanks.
Alrighty, next we'll go to Tony Gerdeman, Buckeye Scoop.
Kerry, you got a couple of cornerbacks coming in this summer. How is that process going with JK and Jordan? How much are you talking to them, keeping them up to speed on what to expect?
Yeah, those kids have done a great job of staying connected, learning the playbook. It's not the same. We experienced that last year. You're not learning on Zoom the same way that you're learning in person. And anybody who says that you are is kidding themselves. And there's no substitute for on the field activity. At the same time, Chris Fenelon with our strength staff is monitoring those guys and working with them on the workout plans and those kind of things. And obviously the coaches, Coach Barnes has done extensive work with those guys, getting them prepared. I'm excited for them to get here. Their learning curve is going to be like this. When they do arrive, it's going to have to be intense and fast, and we got to get them ready. But again, I think there are kids that can help and can contribute, all three of those kids, somehow, some way in the fall. And I'm looking forward to that. I think that the depth in the back end is going to help us. So having kids who can run and having kids who can cover and having kids who can play, so that a corner doesn't take 78 snaps in a game, so that we can rotate guys and keep guys fresh and keep moving them along. Same thing at the safety spots, and being able to play fresh guys, I think will pay us great dividends in the fall.
Alrighty, next we'll go to Dan Hope from 11 Warriors. Dan.
Hey, Kerry, just to follow up on the bullet, if that's something that you guys decide to make a full-time part of his defense, what do you think are the advantages of having a hybrid guy like that out there on the field regularly?
Well, I think you have to make decisions based on game plan of how you're going to attack the offense based on how they're going to attack you. And so if you're playing in the spread game and you've got teams that are going to spread the field, throw the ball around a lot, you got to make sure that you have a plan to handle that. If you're going to play the teams that are going to pack it in and play with two tight ends and run the ball and those kind of things, you got to have a plan for that. What that position affords you the opportunity to do is to try to play both sets of
personnel that the offense has to offer without necessarily having to change your personnel on first and second down. And so I love the way those guys competed this spring, Craig and Ronnie, and I'm excited for their fall. And I think it's going to be a piece of what we do. Absolutely.
All right, let's go next to Nathan Barrett, Cleveland.com.
Hey, Kerry, I have yet
Hi, Nate.
another bullet question. Curious, when you talk about Craig Young, you talk about Ronnie Hickman, those to us look like two very different kinds of athletes, like sort of like two sides of the same hybrid coin. Do you ultimately want like multiple options of the kind of athlete you would use at that position? Or is the long-term goal to take two guys like that and sort of develop them more towards being the same kind of athlete, if that makes sense?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that anytime you're putting together a package, you're going to try to make sure that the defense is emphasizing your players' strengths and not exposing their weaknesses. And so while those two kids are different, and Court Williams would be the third piece of that puzzle, you're looking at different types of players. You're going to, when they're on the field, you're going to want to emphasize what they do best. And so I think it's a great question. It's a good study for how you're going to use personnel in the fall. Obviously, that's not something we want to get into great detail about, but there are differences in the skill sets of several of our players. And I think one of the things that we want to be able to do is not go out there and play with 11 guys. We want to be able to try to play. We've got a lot of kids, a lot of young talent, a lot of kids that are developing, and we want them to play, and we want them to play in roles that are where they're going to be successful, and use them to help us be successful.
Okay, next up, Austin Ward, Leonard Monroe.
Kerry, it seemed like Cameron Martinez had a solid spring and maybe he's more comfortable over there on defense. Can you evaluate the work he did over those 15 practices and how he's looking in the secondary now?
Yeah, I thought he had a great spring. Had the opportunity mostly to play in that cover safety spot, played some corner as well. I think that the transition from being a great quarterback in high school to being a defensive back takes time. I think that his time has been really well spent. He has great body control, and he also has a pretty good awareness of what offenses are doing. And so he has some subtle things in his game that are maybe a little bit more unique. And so he took advantage of those things this spring. And again, there's growth and development for all of our guys. This next 3 months is critical for them. But he had a good spring, and he's put himself in a good spot to be able to compete for good playing time in the fall.
Thanks, Kerry. All righty, next let's go to Doug Lamarice, Cleveland.com.
Kerry, I'm going to try to ask a two-part question. It's one question because you
You're
can
only
tell
allowed
me.
one, Doug. You're only allowed one.
But
There's
the premise of my question might be invalid, so I need help with the start of it.
Well, then I'm probably going to not answer any part of it.
When you guys are playing three linebackers and a single deep safety, that idea of a defense is we're going to have enough guys in the box and we're going to stop the run, and then we're going to deal with the pass. You want to do everything, but we're not going to let you run on you. Is that a fair assumption when you line up that way?
I think if you play, yes, I would think that'd be an accurate assumption. The more linebackers you play, the more you are gearing yourself to stop the run. Correct.
Okay. So in a world where we know what these passing offenses look like now, and you guys see it, you saw Trevor Lawrence and Mac Jones and Devontae Smith and Jalen Waddle. With where the game has gone, are you reevaluating whether the way we line up in our base, that stop the run first and then deal with the pass, maybe that's not how we should think? That now if we're going to go with a bullet, or maybe play more safeties or whatever, because of the passing games in college football, are you rethinking anything about what your base defense looks like at least against certain teams?
I think that we'll go back to the original question today, and just talking in generalities, Doug, we want to get our best players on the field. And so we had a core group of really good linebackers last year. Everybody would agree that group had experience and talent, and they could play. And that was a strength of our defense. And so as you look at the totality of our personnel, we've got a really good, strong front, right? We've got guys that are interchangeable parts up front, and we're excited about them. And so we want to make sure that we're maximizing their ability. And we got caught in a situation this spring where we had fewer linebackers. Doesn't mean that we're going to have fewer linebackers in the fall. Those guys come back, they're healthy. We get it. We are able to incorporate that. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we are structuring our defense in order to defend what the offense and attack the offense in what they do best. And so, based on your schedule and based on who you're playing, that's kind of how you formulate the plan. And so you have to, it's not an overall answer for, okay, it's college football, they're throwing the ball more, so we got to do this. It's just this week against this opponent, how are we going to play that? And we would like to think that we have more options available to us this fall, probably just because of depth, than we probably had last fall. And so we're excited about that.
All righty, we'll do two more for Coach Combs. The first one to Joey Kaufman, Columbus Dispatch.
Kerry, just wanted to ask if you had any, I guess, expectation or hope or about getting Marcus Hooker back in your secondary at all by the end of, I guess, just later this year. Just kind of what's the latest on him?
Yeah, that I have no comment on that because I don't know. So anything I would say would be foolish, but appreciate the question.
All righty, we'll wrap it up with Jeremy Birmingham, Leonard Monroe.
Hey, Kerry, obviously, as you mentioned, the linebacker position is so thin that you guys had to put a long snapper and Rowan McCullough at linebacker for the spring game. How hard is it to resist the temptation to just take an athlete like Craig Young and move him back into linebacker and just say, hey, we need you here. This is where you're going to have to play, as opposed to the long-term view of the defense?
Yeah, I think that's what you have to do, right, Jeremy? We have to be prepared. And we went through this whole process last year in the COVID world where guys had to be versatile and they had to know and learn more than one position. I think we talked about that at length, and we coached them that way. The difference was last year we're trying to do that in a remote environment and trying to get guys ready to play different spots, and it's more challenging. I think this year that's exactly where you find yourself. If you have an area of depth and an area where you don't have as much depth, then you may have to borrow from one to the other to get guys on the field and to allow them to play. But I don't want to retard anybody's learning process by moving them wholeheartedly or wholesale to a new spot. If we can continue to teach them and coach them in more than one spot and allow them to be versatile, I think we're better that way. And I think it prepares us for a long season that way. So I would say to you that it's an excellent question. We're going to fight the temptation to put anybody into a specific box and try to use a really quality coaching staff to coach guys in different roles to get them ready to be able to do that.
So linebacker depth is thin, long snapper depth is good.
I would say that. I thought Rowan did a great job in the spring game, ran around there and made plays, and that kind of stuff helps out. You don't want to put anybody at risk out there in the spring game by having so many reps that something happens and injury occurs. And so, we're going to continue. I don't have specific comments about Rowan, but we're going to continue to move guys around in versatile ways to allow them to help the team the best way they can.
All righty, and on that note, Coach, thank you very much for spending a little time with us today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate you.
All right, folks. Thanks for hopping on today. We'll get this recorded and put in the same spot as usual, and we'll talk to you next time.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike, do you know, will there be a next time, or is this it for spring?
Did you ask for me, Tony?
Yeah. What's the plan moving forward then?
The plan is to take a break now for a while. This will constitute our spring football recap. Players have time off now. I think somebody said when they're back in May, whenever classes start. But in terms of coaches and Zooms, that's it for now. And we'll just reevaluate in a few weeks from now and see what we can do. I would love to get you a couple players a couple times throughout the summer months, but we just have to see how things are going. It's certainly not. There's no definite at all about whether we can do it or we can't. It's not a big ask, from my end. And you know me, I'll do my best to get you guys some people to talk to, just so you can keep writing stories. And we'll do our best. But for now, no, we're going to take a break for now. Stay safe, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Jerry.
Jerry.
Thanks, Jerry.
Watch a little field hockey tomorrow at noon on the Big Ten Network. Big Ten title game.
Will do.